Gray,
Here.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Present.
Garros,
Here.
Arlandu,
Here.
Meadows,
Present.
Ryan,
Here.
All right, thank you. We will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Tom, are there any items to remove or add to the agenda?
No.
Does the board have any questions or comments about the agenda? I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
So moved by Raquel,
Second.
second by Tara. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Ryan,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Kilburg,
Yes.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Garros,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
And motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, item 3.1, action right at the beginning is election of a board secretary. So the only officer position we need to fill at this point in time is board secretary, as indicated in board policy. The board secretary makes sure all the documents are prepared, the minutes are accurate, and is the official signer of decisions that the board have made. I will now open up the window for board secretary. So if you, i.e. the board, would like to nominate yourself or another person, you may do so now.
I would like to nominate Ms. Garros.
Thank you. Kristen Garrels has been nominated by Aaron. Any seconds?
Second.
Second by Rob. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the window for nomination for board secretary has closed. Since you're the only one, I shall declare Kristen Girls as board secretary for the, and do I have to read this twice? No.
No.
All right, for the Batavia Public Schools Board of Education. All right. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. All right, next is oath of office. So as everyone may have noticed, we have two new people way at the end down there. So trying to squeeze everybody in. So in the May meeting, we approved Claire Lindstrom and Arnaud Dutoy as our student board members. Did I get that close, Arnaud? Sweet. Tonight, we will swear them in and have them seated at the board table. They're only pretending to sit there right now. So can we have Claire Lindstrom and Arnaud Dutoy come to the podium? Take this. I forgot the last time. Did you guys get a copy of this already?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So right at the beginning, you guys will talk over each other. We're not gonna make you do it individually. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. So repeat after me. I'll kind of go a bit, it's 1, 2 really long sentences. So I'm gonna try to go through the first sentence. So, I, state your name, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the student board member of the Board of Education of Batavia Community Unit School District 101 in accordance with the policies of the Board of Education.
I, Arnaud Dutoy, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of student board member of the Board of Education of Batavia Community Unit School District 101 in accordance with the policies of the Board of Education.
I further affirm that I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by myself and board members and others who seek a hearing before the board.
I further affirm that I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by myself and board members and others who seek a hearing before the board.
All right, congratulations. I'm gonna read 2 more things,
Thank
but
you.
thank you. Thank you. All right, well, we welcome you guys to the board and look forward to, as your position evolves and grows, and we appreciate you taking the time to learn that with us as we go. So thank you very much. All right, can we have Drew Ray please approach the podium? Thanks, Drew, for coming today.
Thanks for having me, as usual. First of all, happy new school year to everyone, and thank you to everyone who put in a ton of work over the summer to get us ready for the start of the school year. As an HC Storm parent, I also want to say thank you for all the communication regarding the status of the outdoor upgrades. Obviously, the construction isn't ideal, but I know the end result's going to be worth that inconvenience, and we're looking forward to it. Also, I had the pleasure of meeting our new board member, Ms. Tara Gray, when she was sworn in a couple months ago. I've not had the opportunity to meet our other new board member, Mr. Patrick Ryan. So Board Member Ryan, welcome to the show. I look forward to working with you as well as Board Member Gray and the rest of the board for that matter. So welcome. Nice to formally meet you. Second, we're a couple weeks away from Labor Day. I don't say that because I'm already looking towards our first day off. I say that because Labor Day is an incredibly important and symbolic holiday. Labor Day is about recognizing the contributions of working people. It's a day where we acknowledge the strength of our communities and institutions and the people who do the work every day. That is especially true in public education. Our members aren't just employees of the district. They're the people teaching students, supporting their social and emotional needs, providing specialized services, keeping students safe, communicating with families, and doing the countless things that make this district great. In that same spirit, as you may or may not know, this year is a contract year for the BEA. And for us, Labor Day also has a very direct connection to collective bargaining. Our union gives employees a meaningful voice in determining their working conditions and the compensation they receive for that work. Good faith bargaining is about more than exchanging proposals. It's about coming to the table with a genuine willingness to listen, understand, and work toward an agreement that both sides can ultimately stand behind. One of the fundamental jobs of an educator is to ensure that our students have what they need to learn and grow in a safe and supportive environment. At the all-member BEA general meeting we had last week, this past Monday, we shared with our members that the job of our union is to support our members so that they can support our students. And I know in my heart of hearts that the BEA and the Board of Education have a shared interest in making sure that our educators have the resources and support to do just that. Speaking of the importance and strength of labor, the BEA sends all of the positive vibes in the world to the Roxana Education Association, who have been bargaining since January and are still fighting for a fair contract. Solidarity forever indeed. Go Bulldogs. Let's have a great school year. Good night and good luck. Thanks.
Thanks, Drew. Holly, do we have anyone wishing to address the board today?
Yes, we have 5 individuals.
Okay. Welcome to the meeting of the Board of Education. If anyone wishes to address the board, as we know there are, please make sure you see our recording secretary to submit a form addressing the board. Please put your full name and address on the form. In general, the board does not answer questions or engage in dialogue during public comment. This does not mean we do not take your concerns or comments seriously. The board values your active community participation in the district's endeavors and encourages people to engage in the district using appropriate channels and systems designed with your input in mind. Board members are not involved in the day-to-day decisions or operations of the district and cannot engage in district business individually. If you had specific questions or would like further engagement with the district, you may submit your questions using the link on the website. An appropriate staff member will reach out to you. Holly, who is our first?
Thank you, President Meadows. Speakers will be called up in order of form submission. The first form received is the first person invited to speak. When your name is called, please come to the podium so that you can be heard. All individuals speaking will be limited to 3 minutes. A 3-minute timer will be started once you are settled at the podium. At any time during this meeting, written comments may be submitted to Cindy Rodriguez to my right. Speakers should conduct themselves with civility and respect toward others. Our first speaker is Danielle Slager.
Hi, good evening. First, I want to say congratulations to Claire and Arno. It's so exciting to see you guys up here, and I'm really excited for your perspectives. It's what you do. I'm here tonight regarding a couple of issues I feel are important to bring to this level. I believe the lack of communication and transparency surrounding them are exacerbating the issues for many of the community. An issue specific to the HE Storm community is that they are currently the only school in the district not allowing snack time for students. I won't spend the limited time I have to list the numerous benefits snacks provide for performance and overall well-being and behavior. I will highlight the inequity of one group of students in the entire district who are unable to get a little extra fuel nutrition during their day, while their peers in the rest of the district can. This need is highlighted by our own policy, 6050, School Wellness, where it states the goals for addressing nutrition education and nutrition promotion include the following. Schools will support and promote good nutrition for students. Schools will foster the positive relationship between good nutrition, physical activity, and the capacity of students to develop and learn. The other issue I bring to you is affecting our entire elementary body. We have learned by word of mouth, not through school or district correspondence, that there's been a shift in specials to accommodate full-day kindergarten. What's also not being openly discussed is that our students are not receiving the state requirements of 3 PE classes per week. In fact, most weeks, students will only receive 1 PE class due to the rotation of specials. This policy is clearly outlined in ILCS Section 27705, as well as our very own BPS policy 6060, curriculum content, under number 9. I'd like to highlight again our own policy 6050, school wellness, because I believe it also applies to this issue as well. At the admin and board level, I'd like to ask that you reflect on why the decision of snack time is being left up to each building rather than ensuring as a whole the students of this district are receiving similar experiences and support, and what can be done to help change the problem at HCS to reflect equity amongst all students. The number of excuses we've heard are not showing progress or an effort to address this issue. While each school may need different resources to help ensure students have access to snacks, I can assure you that the many organizations and families partnered with the district can and will help. At the board level, why is it such a shift and stray from the district's own policies not being communicated to the community? Right now, your community is left to try to shuffle through texts, conversations, and passing, and digging through online district and state policies to understand this shift in curriculum that doesn't seem to follow the requirements. I really hope you're willing to help in both of these cases and will ensure that the community is communicated with. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Angela Craig.
Good evening. I'm Angela Kreck, and I am a resident of Batavia and a parent of a child within the BPS 101 district. I'm standing here tonight because a critical issue regarding our student learning environment has hit a procedural standstill. For months, members of this community have expressed concerns regarding YouTube access on student-issued devices. We've initiated conversations with administration. We've met with the superintendent. We started a community petition that, as of today, has 691 signatures. And we've used this public comment forum month after month. Yet, despite widespread community consensus, these efforts have not yielded actionable results. We fully understand the chain of command, and we respect that day-to-day operations flow through the superintendent's office. However, when administration is unable or unwilling to address a systemic classroom distraction, it becomes a policy issue, and policy is the explicit responsibility of this elected board. First, we formally request that we be given access to the Lightspeed Parent Portal. This is a built-in feature of the district's existing content filtering software that requires zero additional taxpayer funding to deploy. It's a turn on or turn off feature. Activating this portal would give each parent real-time visibility into their own child's screen time and internet usage, and let them restrict or block after-school YouTube. It also sends weekly email summaries, a time-stamped breakdown of every site visited, with allowed and blocked indicators. For content filtering software that costs $64,948 a year, it seems only fiscally responsible to use every feature we've already paid for. Google Workspace updated their policy in 2025 so that users under 18 require parental consent to use YouTube. When we sign the acceptable use policy, we are essentially signing a blank digital waiver. We are forced to opt into the entire Google ecosystem, just so our kids can use their Chromebooks for basic schoolwork. But we aren't given a choice about the distractions that come with it. If the district is going to use general compliance clauses to keep YouTube open on student profiles, the absolute bare minimum you can do is grant us access to the Lightspeed Parent Portal so we can see the data and manage the screen time that we were forced to sign off on. True educational partnership requires transparency, and providing parents with this data allows us to actively manage and reinforce healthy digital boundaries at home. Second, we request that the board establish a temporary technology advisory committee under Board Policy 2150. This committee should bring parents, teachers, and district technology administrators to the table. Let us study the data from the parent portal logs and help make informed decisions regarding the safety of our children. To the members of the board, you are our elected voice. We ask that at least one member of the board sponsor our request for the next meeting's agenda. Let's stop repeating the same conversations. Let's empower our teachers, protect our students' focus, and use district policy to look at the data. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Missy Hem.
Hi, everybody. My name's Missy Hem. I'm the parent of a Louise White second grader and a licensed clinical social worker, and I am here with some of these other folks to talk about technology today. I want to support Angela's remarks and maybe just speak more broadly about why this is of interest to me, and I think so many parents that I know are really concerned about like what their kids are doing online and not being able to have any oversight or control over that. And that's been a new experience for me over the last 2 years, just becoming a parent of an elementary school teacher. But the question isn't like whether technology belongs in our schools. I think the question is whether the amount and type of technology that we're using is appropriate for students at different stages of development. What concerns me is that we're often treating like a kindergartner, a 7th grader, and a high school senior as though they learn the same way, and they don't. For our youngest students, my biggest concern is foundational learning. Elementary children are learning how to read, write, spell, form letters, develop number sense, and really to sustain attention. These are skills that we can't really afford to get wrong. Research has found that handwriting can engage learning processes differently from typing. A 2025 study found that children who practiced letters and words through handwriting subsequently performed better on learning tasks than children who practiced through typing. The researchers concluded that handwriting may play an important role in developing the mental structures needed for literacy. So when a young child spends a significant portion of the school day typing instead of writing or interacting with a screen instead of a physical book, we should be asking whether we're actually strengthening the foundational skills that that child needs. By middle school, students are expected to move beyond learning how to read and to begin learning through reading. I think that's maybe more at like the 4th grade level, but they're expected to understand longer, more complicated material, make connections, and think critically about what they're reading. And that's when comprehension and attention become major concerns. There's a large body of research comparing digital and paper reading that has found that print can provide a comprehension advantage, especially with longer and more complex texts. And then there's a meta-analysis that found lower comprehension with some digital reading formats when compared with print. Middle school students are also at an age when attention and self-regulation are still developing. Putting an internet-connected device in front of a 12-year-old doesn't just give them access to educational material, it also gives them access to an enormous number of distractions. So I think we should be asking, are we teaching middle school students to focus deeply, or are we training them to constantly divide their attention? And then we have our high school students, where at this stage the goal isn't simply to complete assignments, but we want students to graduate being able to think independently, to evaluate information, solve problems, and understand complicated ideas. Research on laptop use in classrooms has found that multitasking hurts learning, and then one peer-reviewed study found that students who were multitasking on laptops during lectures were actually distracting the students around them. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Haley Lamb.
My name is Haley Lamb. I'm a Batavia resident and the parent of a 3rd grader at Louise White and a 6th grader at RMS. Tonight you have heard and will continue to hear the lived experiences of members of your community. Members whose children are members of children who are attending our public schools. They have been showing up for months, expressing concerns regarding technology use in our classrooms. We've shared statistics, our fears, frustrations, and our stories. We ask to be heard and for action. As it was stated, 691 citizens of Batavia have signed our petition to date, but the advocates for change in our classroom are being denied and ignored without any substantial evidence-based opposition. But this has not always been the case. You were recently inundated with hate and demands for resignation over a social media post. This prompted a social media policy. Bits and pieces were mirrored from our surrounding districts. Why can't the same be done for technology? Only 5 months passed in the time it took for you to realize a problem and have a corrective policy in place. You went from zero awareness of the issue to full resolution. With regards to technology, there have been no meaningful engagement or even a willingness to discuss progress in the last 4 months. Why does the situation have to immediately affect you before action can be taken? Thank you.
The next speaker is Juliet Galavia.
Good evening. I am Juliet Delavia. I have 3 children in the district, a 9th grader, a 6th grader, and a 4th grader at Louise White. I've spoken before on this. I'm here to talk about screens. It's no surprise. I don't want to spend my evening doing this, but I think it's very important. I haven't been into the meetings over the summer because of family commitments, but I have watched every board meeting, and I do appreciate that there was conversation. I think it was Tom Kim that said that this should be an ongoing conversation that we're having, and I do appreciate that you're acknowledging that, and I think that, as it was mentioned, I think that there should be a committee formed. I think it should be a regular conversation that we're having. I went over the data that was presented to parents about Chromebook usage. Those numbers, 49, 84, 78. 49 minutes in the elementary school, 84 minutes in the middle school, 78 minutes in the high school Chromebook usage per day. I was a teacher in first grade for 13 years. I can't imagine my kids being on screens for 49 minutes. Every minute in that classroom was precious to me. Reading, writing, interacting, socialization. They learned everything. 49 minutes in front of a screen? Like, that disgusts me. I've seen the screen time that the kids are doing. Some of it, yes, it's been a long time. I started teaching in the 90s. I get it, I'm a dinosaur. But I will say that, like, some of the stuff is just, the kids are popping bubbles so they can do another math problem. They get to pop 15 more bubbles. It's ridiculous. Like, this is not quality education. And I've heard you all asking very valuable questions about curriculum, right? Rigorous science standards. You talked about that. Field testing, math curriculums, ELA curriculums. What does this involve? How much technology? What are we doing? You're very intentional about everything that goes on and the decisions you make. I've seen you ask the questions. I've watched those meetings. We have to dive into this. We need to take it seriously. I got a good taste of high school for 4 days, and apparently high schoolers can go on their phones. So for 30 minutes at the end of every day, my high schooler is asking me for screen time because he doesn't get it whenever he wants it. Because he's at school. He doesn't need his phone. But he's asking me, and I'm saying, you're in school. No, but we're allowed. When we're done with our work, and I verified this with a staff member, when they're done with this work, for the last 30 minutes, they can have screen time. 30 minutes for my kid 4 times so far. 30 minutes. And I can tell you that this kid, my timer's gonna go off, my son has not had PE since last December, and he will not have PE until January of 2027.
Thank you for your comment.
A year without physical education in this district.
That's the end of our public comment.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone who came to speak tonight. The board appreciates your time and effort to attend the meetings and share your comments. We will now go to the consent agenda for this evening. So according to our board policy, we designate a portion and the action items in the agenda as a consent agenda for those items that usually do not require extensive discussion before board action. These items are generally routine, recurring, can be grouped together for efficiency. Steve, would you please lead us through the agenda?
Absolutely. One addition to the personnel report I'd like to add for Cindy, we can get it on the record. I would like to add Amy Henriksen on the personnel report with a retirement date of May 23rd. All right, 6.1 is the approval of minutes from the regular board meeting on July 21st, 2026. 6.2 is the approval of the payroll and bills. 6.3 is the approval of the personnel report with that addition to it previously stated. 6.4 is the approval of donations. Thank you to the Batavia Mothers Club, Office Depot, and the Batavia Music Buffs for their generous donations. And 6.5 is the approval of review, destruction of closed session recordings from January 21st, 2025.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about the consent agenda? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve all items in the consent agenda as presented.
So moved?
So moved by Aaron,
Second.
second by Tara. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Garros,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Kilburg,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, reports, 7.1. Tony, you can go blend into 7.2 for after FOIA reports if you like.
I'll keep it brief.
Okay.
7.1 is the FOIA report. There were 5 FOIA requests that we received recently. They were all granted. One was granted in part, one was denied in part. And then the treasurer's report is the first report of the 2027 fiscal year. It started on July 1. Nothing out of the ordinary to report there. It's very early in the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Any questions for? All right, item 7.3, construction update. Mr. John, there you are.
How you doing?
Podium.
Just snuck in on you.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
That's right. Good evening, Board of Education members, administration, and public. My name is John Mickle. I'm here to just go through our construction update for the August. As you know, we did our warm, safe, and dry initiative, new HVAC installations, classroom and office reconfiguration, new windows and doors, tuck pointing and roofing, security entrance sequence, new fire detection system, and then the additional scope and updates is for our new flooring, comprehensive flooring replacements at a couple schools, parking lot and entrance at HC Storm, facilities and grounds projects, and then the custodial update. There you go. So at AGS and then also at JB Nelson, we did flooring, new hallways, new commons areas, entrance and gym flooring. In the entranceways, we did carpeting, kind of a walk-off mat carpeting. And then in the hallways, we did the LVT, luxury vinyl tile. It's not luxury, but it's just not the old VCT where you put the finish on. So it's much easier to maintain moving forward. And then in the gyms, we went from the VCT hard to a soft vinyl roll product that looks like a wood gym floor. So turned out really great, I think, in both schools. As you can see here, kind of consistent throughout for both buildings. For Louise White, we had the part of the warm, safe, and dry. As you can see here, on the left was, I think it was about July 6th, and then on the right was just last week with the new windows for the main office, new doorway, new storefront, new tuck pointing all the way around the building. So to help keep our building envelope dry on the inside so we don't have penetration. New rooftop units for the building. Those are all up, running. They've been tested and balanced. New main entrance. So this is part of our security sequence where you buzz to get into the foyer, the vestibule, and then the vestibule you get buzzed into the main office. Once you get checked in the main office, then you're also buzzed to get out into the general population of the school. This is looking in from, this is in the vestibule on the left, once you walk in the front door with the new office door to the right there. And then the next picture on the right there is walking into the foyer area into the school with new flooring, new wall with the ceramic tile on the wall, new ceilings, new lighting. Really a great look for the building. New kindergarten rooms, which turned out absolutely fabulous. If you haven't been there, please go take a look. It's great. It was really cool to see all the teachers and the kindergarten teachers beaming with just smiles and then everybody else jealous. So, which was a good thing. But new flooring, new walls, new everything, lighting, ceiling, new cabinetry, really just a great space, new bathrooms. And then in the pod, B and C pod, we put new flooring in for the common space flooring. Once again, LVT flooring, new cubbies there you can see to accommodate the students' belongings. Also on the left there is a sensory room with the lighting, the sensory lighting. You can do a multitude of different colors, different sequences. Also has, features in that room for the sensory. And then on the right is the art room, new drop-down electrical outlets, new tables, stools, cabinetry, really, really great space. Library refresh, this was designed by Rob Schmidt, our assistant director. So new circulation desk, new soft seating, paint, flooring, just really made it pop. So we're really excited about this. Kind of a great central location of the building that really needed a refresh and is really just bright and welcoming for students. let me go back on this. So we do have a couple areas that we're still, we have to go through, obviously, the punch list, and then we had some items. We had some doors that did not come in time, so we put, they're temporary doors up to code. They'll be here by the end of the month. There's some roofing, some flashing that needs to be completed. All of this work will be done outside of school hours and on the weekends. But really, it wrapped up quick at the end and in a fury, but we came in wheels burning and made it work. And we really appreciate Principal Wall and the staff for being patient and understanding as we finished up. And GSF did a great job helping us come behind us with our whirlwind of dust and debris and cleaning up. And then the maintenance staff also did a fantastic job just jumping in, as a team and moving furniture. I think we moved 2 28-foot trailers and 3 box trucks of furniture and old stuff out of the building, all within this. See, we started on, I can't remember, we started on the 13th. So from that Monday, the 10th to the 13th, we just kind of helped them purge a little bit and make way for some of the new stuff. And it was a really great team effort there, and really turned out fantastic, I think. HD Storm, exterior new storm drains through the whole thing, new water main, new irrigation system, new parking lots. We added a parking lot here, new sidewalks, new everything outside pretty much. And we had some struggles, some revisions, and also weather. I think we averaged on 38 inches of rain a year for Chicago, and since June 1st, we've gotten between 20 and 25 inches. And just felt like it was never going to stop, but it did, and we worked through that, and our contractors struggled through that, and they pushed and kept pushing. So here's a picture coming off of Van Nortwick into the north lot. The left picture was about a week and a half ago, and the right picture was just the other day with school in session. Here's another picture coming around that bend heading into this would be the student drop-off coming from the north off Van Nortwick, and dropping students off. Here's some of the new concrete, the new drop-off, and then half of the main entrance there. There's the rest of it finished up for the main entrance. So it has a great pad up front there around that circle for gathering and activities. South lot, this was it on the 10th, trying to get going there, and then the other day we finally got our asphalt down, so we're really excited about that. I've never been so excited about asphalt. So that's great. We actually are going to open it tomorrow morning for bus traffic. We did the safety test today. Even with the bus made it through there with a couple dumpsters that they were getting removed this afternoon, and a semi-truck load of dirt and a couple skidsters. So the driver was either Evel Knievel or it's got enough space. So we're really excited about that. Some of the things that are still outstanding are obviously the landscaping. So Fox Excavating is doing a great job backfilling all that stuff, and then Burr Oak, our partner with landscaping, is going to be in to start. They've already done some of the front, but they're going to go ahead and get started with the plantings and everything starting later this week. The playground is installed, the surface of it, so the gravel to bring it to grade, and then the turf surface will be started this Thursday. So we're excited about that as well. So. Any questions on those two projects? Okay. So going to facilities and grounds, some of our team projects. I showed this before it was completed, kind of when we were in the middle of it at my last update. This is at AGS, and it's a resource room in the LRC, kind of where we were at the last meeting, and then the final product there. It's both final products inside and then outside the room. Our guys did a great job on that. Another one I want to highlight is the Rotolo Middle School Bulldog Closet. Our team helped get this all set up and reconfigured for them to use. And then our partner, like I was talking about, GSF, did a great job this summer, really partnering with us, working around us, behind us, and just late at night, getting our schools ready for the students. So we're really excited about that, and they are off to a good start this year as well. And that's what I got. Any questions or?
I just want to say thank you. So I've been sort of monitoring it all summer, and even on the first day, in a very unintrusive way, I kind of drove around and see how things were going, and it did appear like all hands on deck, because, you know, there are a few things that were still unfinished, but I know there's a tremendous amount of work and collaboration. I work in construction, so I understand how these projects work, and there's a hard stop when the kids are showing up, rain or shine. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody that worked so hard to make it happen so our kids could come to school and have a safe experience. And I'm very excited to get a tour of some of these buildings when you're done with your punch list so we can see what they look like, because it looks like a massive improvement, so well done.
Thank you. I do want to say a thank you to Principal Milka, too. I left him out. Him and his staff really went above and beyond, working through, you know, giving them a little bit every day access. And actually, the parents, too, were great out there for drop-off and dismissal. Everybody had a great attitude. I even tried to recruit some of them that showed up. They're heading out to work for construction. I'm like, you're late, let's go. But yeah, it was great, and I think it was great for them to see the progress as we went along there, too. So thank you.
Yeah, that was the one I was like, well, I see Rob, I see I mean, it was like really, but the kids were flowing, the parents were walking, and the kids are the easiest. They just go with the flow, right? So, but yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next is action item 8.1, approval to add girls flag football as an interscholastic sport at Batavia High School. Tom, you gonna introduce us?
Yes. So this item is coming to the board, but before we go into Mark presenting some of the details about the program, to just inform the board about any of the deals, you know, how we got here and what's been going on. I do want to apologize to the board. This should have been brought forward in the summer in a more timely fashion by me, and so I do apologize to the board as the process was not completely in sync with what we have done in the past. So I own that, and I want to make sure the board is understanding of that. I also want to make sure that I also acknowledge that certain practices that we have typically used in our work with our committees or how we bring forward programming was also something that did not follow our past practice. And again, another one of those aspects that we have met with the BEA leadership. We've talked through that. We do have some steps outlined in Mark's memo about how we're moving forward from tonight if the board were to approve the program. And so I know there might be some questions. I know Mark is also prepared to speak to the program itself. I do want to say thank you for your patience and the questions that some of you reached out to me with about this topic. And so I just want to make sure I put that out there in front before we kind of go into the conversation, okay, or a presentation.
All right. Hello, board. How was everybody tonight? Hopefully well. So flag football, and thanks for the little introduction, Tom. Flag football really came to the high school as far as interest level. I would say earlier, well, it's last school year, but probably in the late January to February range. So I'm going to use we a lot because technically I wasn't really in the role at that time, but knew I would be in the role. So if I say we, it's just more than myself. When this came about, high school, we do an interest survey just to see what the interest really is. And again, for, in this case, girls to go ahead and check a box, say, oh yeah, sure, I'm in favor of it. You get a lot more than is actual reality. So we went through that process and then saw there was an interest, so we continued through that. The next thing you do is actually see if there is a commitment. So bring them in, invite them to a meeting and see how much there would be. There wasn't as much there, so we kind of continued that on. And what I mean by continue that on is worked with Batavia Youth Athletics for some camps. We didn't really have anything offered for girls flag football, so we did that, and really in that season, you have to do it on Sundays. And that takes a little bit of commitment to commit to yourself to come out on Sunday evenings and do this. And that commitment we really saw grew at that point. So at that point, again, this is in April, so it's a little bit late, and there's some decisions that have to be made. So we kind of move forward with some of those, and you need coaches to do that. So we put out a coaches interest survey, and did get interest with staff members. So then we continued in the summer and offered more camps and continued to get more and more girls interested in this. And so at that point, really, when you're starting a fall sport, you need to kind of get moving with that. So we did, and open registration, and the numbers continued to grow. And it's a little kind of interesting to stand here and know that girls flag football, really the season started already. It started on the 10th, and we're going. We started the season with 30 girls. Last I looked, we're up to 35. So it continues to grow as I think the word continues to get out, and it has been out there. But really at this point, you know, we had a corn boil and they were on the turf, and they were kind of using at that point, put together girls' basketball uniforms because we don't have uniforms at this point. So, and they were all fine with it, and you know, I think at this point it's good to just see more and more interest going, and to continue that interest. And really, you want students to participate. And I'm speaking for athletics, but really you want them to participate in as many extracurricular activities as possible, and that's really what this is about. And then really the schedule piece, I think, is growing, trying to get more and more games, because unfortunately the IHSA moved the season up and shortened it a little bit. So everybody was scrambling to get games, and obviously other teams that started before us. So I'm hopeful you can have 25 games in a season. Right now, as of today, we're at 13 games and continuing. There's other programs. Actually, I just was talking to the Sycamore athletic director yesterday about they just started girls flag football as well. So we're trying to get dates on the calendar. And again, there's some moving pieces going on with it, but that's kind of what happens when you're first trying to start a program up. And again, as Tom said, you know, I think the timing, you know, is obviously a little off for me to be standing here in August after it started, but I think the biggest thing for me to say is there is interest in there, and I, you know, from the practices I've seen, the girls are really enjoying having flag football at this point at the high school. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions anybody has, and yeah, I might have to ask others, but yeah, if there's any questions, feel free.
Questions or comments?
So I have some, and I'm sure Tom already probably addressed some of these, but I'm just gonna put what I asked earlier. So who authorized this move forward with the program prior to the board approval?
So that would fall under me.
What happens operationally if the board ultimately chooses not to approve?
If the board doesn't approve the program tonight, one of the things I hope is that I can get a better understanding of where the non-approval is coming from, to see if we can either answer questions or rectify certain things that might change that. Otherwise, if at the end on that outcome, the board were not to move this forward, I would own it with our stakeholders. We would put a pause in the program and look to, again, kind of remedy what it is that the board is looking for to move forward.
So the middle school programs went to a multi-year club phase without the volunteers being paid before gaining official status. Why was the high school program exempt from this procedure, and what complications does this exception create for other groups seeking stipend approval?
There was no intentionality in trying to skip over any process. I think for our teams, there was, if the board recalls, a lot of interest coming to the board, to the administration as well. You know, at the time, I think Mark did a nice job of outlining kind of where the steps were. You know, once that interest hit us, we took the appropriate steps that most high schools do in terms of getting interest surveys taken care of, to start garnering how much interest there is in students. And as Mark pointed out, the number dipped, but then when they did one more thing to try and see truly where that level of interest was from our students, the numbers started to pick up. And by the end of April, early May window, that was when it appeared that there was going to be enough student athletes to field the team. So, again, one of the things was that it was not any attempt to bypass anything. Again, I take responsibility for the timing of all this, and also where our processes landed, but we are looking to rectify that as we move forward.
Since this program requires 3 coaches, were the positions posted according to the BE contract, and are any of these 3 coaches already coaching another fall sport?
Yes, BHS team posted the stipends through the portal as it's outlined in our CBA. And then we do have one coach at the moment who's going to be coaching in both programs to help them get started, and then we'll be taking a look at how that moves forward. One thing I do want to note, we did talk about if the board were to approve this evening, I believe, Mark, you captured this in your memo, but we would be then taking that, Dr. Pierce will work with Ms. Gages and go back to the stipend committee and have that conversation back with the stipend committee. We've talked to the union about that. I think that's where we agreed that would be a satisfactory remedy for the situation.
Is that coach being paid 2 stipends?
Steve, are you able to help with that, or Mark?
Well, as of right now, there's 1 stipend for the boys' football program. There's not the stipend committee has not acted on any stipends for girls' flag football. So from my vantage point, it's 1 stipend at this time, and I don't know what the vision is.
Correct.
We have to talk a little bit more about.
Correct.
So then if approved, they could be having 2 stipends for the fall sports. It's approved here, and it goes to the stipend committee, and you guys work your numbers, they could possibly have 2 stipends for fall sports.
I don't know. We have to talk about that.
Right.
Is it possible? Sure,
Yeah.
but
But my understanding is, you guys correct me, the idea was the 1 stipend to be potentially used as a vessel from football to girls' flag football.
I have heard that, yes, but
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these details, I think, as Tom said, we, do need to work out with the proper channels and being the stipend committee.
So with that, if this goes yes, 2 stipends, then I just, again, this will be future questions, but what would be the requirement of that coach to receive the full stipend if they practices and for participation in the practices? 100%, 75, 50, and then what special criteria dictate expectations of coaches' dual sports in 1 season? How will we evaluate the future individual requests without establishing an automatic entitlement for all staff? So that'll be separate conversation whenever this gets approved and so forth. So my next question is, the stipend committee previously indicated there were no funds available for this. So what changed? Are these funds officially built into the current budget?
Sorry, I'm just making note of what you just added here. I just want to make sure I capture so we follow up with that appropriately.
If you need me to
I got
repost it? Okay.
No, I got it. And then regarding budgetary, there's been no change. The funds remain the same structure as it is in the CBA for the stipend committee. Yes, the funds were allocated in this year's budget.
So from the budget, it's coming from what, like tier? Like, is it coming from like this?
Tony?
It's not coming from any tier. It's part of our broader stipend budget. The stipend committee gets an allocation to make adjustments to existing stipends or to add new stipends each year as part of the CBA. In this case, we just built the stipend budget a little bit bigger, or what you'll adopt tonight if you adopt that budget.
And really, the other expenses outside of that, and I did put this in the report, but working with the Chicago Bears at this time, they do offer a lot of grants, a number of grants. I've not heard back at this point, but in talking to other coaches that started this program is basically just keep asking. They just keep finding money. The other thing is to go with the boosters, because we had to start up with uniforms as well. I've reached out to the boosters as well to help cover those costs. Anytime you're starting a program like this, that's what you look for, is you look for, support to start it, because it is different. It is different than, if you're 5 years or 6 years into a program.
And then what are the organizational legal repercussions of bypassing established policy with stakeholders such as BEA, BESPA, and ISB?
So from a state organizational perspective, this is a local matter, so this is with us. With regard to the BEA, we have talked about this matter with the BEA. We met with them. And again, part of the remedies we're presenting to tonight were discussed with the BEA leadership team. And so some decisions will be made at the stipend committee. That was something we discussed and agreed upon. And then we are going to also take a look at some of the language. This is a bargaining year, as Drew has mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. There might be some mutual benefit or mutual interest, to reviewing some of the language across the board in our CBA. But this might be an area that we can revisit too.
Other questions?
I got a follow-up. So actually, one of Raquel's questions made me think about something. So, Tony, just to clarify, you've added $40,000 to $50,000 into the stipend?
No.
But
There's only, the estimate that we're working off of is that stipends are about, $10,000 to $15,000.
okay.
The balance is officials, transportation, equipment, those sorts of things, of what it would cost to run this program. The stipends are the smallest portion.
Okay. So Mark mentioned the grant that you can apply for. I don't know how much that would be, but is there like some kind of deficit we're running here then? Or do we have all these expenses covered?
Yeah, so as far as like the grants go, the initial grant is 2,500. That's what I initially planned for, and then the boosters, basically, they give, money towards uniforms and asking that. So is the full amount in there covered by outside sources? No, it's not. So basically, in our building budget, we build in, for transportation costs, that's a line item in there, and for equipment costs. Some of this is gonna be done, through fundraising. Tell you what, they just literally, girls flag football started a fundraiser. So part of that is through that as well. So some of, that money will go to that. Not a lot of it, because really at fundraisers, more stuff that's directly, some extras that the girls will do in the season. So, yeah, this will come out, all of the other expenses besides stipend will come out of the different line items within the building budget.
And is there student participation in this? Like student fee?
Yes, it'll be the, well, I'm thinking it's gonna be the exact same fee, because I don't wanna, charge differently for starting this up. But in other programs, there are some other fees just built in for, different items that is directly related to the students, separate than the participation fee.
So the stipend funds were increased to accommodate these expenses, correct?
Yeah.
And so will it have to be increased every year going forward because of this new flag football program, or is it, does that make sense?
Generally, costs increase each year. Yeah. For everything. Very rarely does the opposite happen.
Yeah, and just to add to that, to give a little more context, for instance, in our CBA, staff get paid a certain amount for their first years 1 through 3 to be in charge of an activity or a sport. Then from like year 4 to 7, it goes up, and then so it's a graduated scale. So Tony is exactly right. Every year, generally speaking, our stipends go up because the longevity of coaches in the same position, they get paid more money over time. At about, I think it's year 13, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that's when you kind of hit the max, and then that stipend is stable. But over time, a staff member or an outside vendor is going to get paid more the longer they're with us, if that makes sense. So that's where there's like fluidity and increase in that overall stipend that Tony deals with on an annual basis.
But one of the key reasons why it's important to have the board authorize a program like this is because it's a multi-year commitment, right? Obviously, there are costs like officials and transportation, but to operate that over time, you're committing to stipends, you're also committing to equipment that you wouldn't just abandon or sell, or if you did, it would have, probably marginal value. But this is a multi-year commitment, and you're committing future funds, so that's why it's important to have the board's approval for a program such as this.
So I'll make a few comments. So I want to thank Raquel for all her questions. I have a lot of the similar questions. I know this isn't really our standard practice, and I don't think we'd want to run everything in this kind of order typically. Mark, you said you can't say we. Well, if anyone's watched a board meeting, they know that this is a subject that is personal for me because I've been involved with it kind of since its inception. I volunteered as a coach last year at the junior high, and I'll be doing so again this fall in full transparency. And, when as a board member, when we're spending dollars, one thing I always ask is, well, how is this benefiting students? How is this serving students? And I'll just share an anecdotal story. So last year when we had the team at the junior high, it was the first time we had about 47 girls. And those were 47 young women that were not doing an activity in the fall. And I'm going to get emotional here, but it was pretty magical. I mean, it was new. We were kind of like the Bad News Bears. We didn't have uniforms. It was very ragtag. The parents didn't know what they were looking at. We didn't know what we were doing, really, but it came together and it kept building. And then we started getting buy-in from a lot of people in the community, the boys program, the district, parents. It started growing. And then we got to the end of the season, and it was like, well, where are all these eighth graders? Are they going to have an opportunity to continue participating? And, I'll be honest, I didn't think it would happen probably this quick, but there was a groundswell of support. A lot of parents really engaged, a lot of people within the district, they want what's best for kids. And so when the corn boil came and I saw girls out there, and it was a lot of the girls I had coached, I saw a lot of sisters out there playing together, and their families were in the stands. It was a very proud moment because they were out there playing, and then the boys came. And when I started participating with this to my daughter, I said, that's the goal, is for someday these kids to have an opportunity like the men to play on this field and do the same type of activity. So I agree that we should learn from this, and things got a little out of sequence, but I think this is purely a good thing that's definitely going to serve kids, and it's going to just grow and grow and grow, and it's going to be something that we're proud of and that our kids are going to benefit from. I'll just, again, share my daughter's story. She used to play soccer, and when people would come over, or relatives, they say, how's soccer going? And now when they ask her, she says, I'm not a soccer player, I'm a football player. Which that makes me very proud because she's this little peanut, but she's got that pride and being a bulldog and doing that. So this is providing more opportunities for kids. I know basically what we're always trying to do is get kids to engage with their peers in school because that helps their development, makes our school safer. And so I think approving this accomplishes that, with keeping in mind that, yes, we should learn from this because the sequencing wasn't right, and we should learn and grow so that in the future when instances like this happen, we can do it better.
Other comments?
I just have one question, kind of a technical question, but given the district's limited field space, are there any anticipated issues with, getting practices and games and?
Creativity, I would say. Yeah, no, really for these first, week and a half or so, there's been a lot of communication, a lot of working together. Yes, when you're adding one more, team on the limited field space, you do have to get creative. So there has been a lot of conversations. We're finding times, I can tell you what, the turf was used a lot. It is continuing to be used. The grass fields are getting used a lot, and I'm continuing to explore other fields close by the high school to try to figure out spots. But as of right now, there is a schedule. Everybody's following it, and it is working out at this point. But if you go by the high school, you will see the lights on the turf field because somebody is using it until 9 o'clock or later at night.
All right, yeah, one thing that, I'm always on the lookout, as board president or otherwise, is, kind of the risk reward and like, are the things followed that should have been followed? Is there a reason to hurry? I mean, we had a lot of parents come in here and talk about how this was important to them and important, and girls, and I think a couple boys coming in to talk about how important it was to them. So, I think sometimes you get caught up in the wave, but I think making sure that these decisions are made with intention, and I think in a lot of ways these were, but to really kind of reach back, that if it's like, hey, look, there's an opportunity here, I think one of the takeaways that I've heard from a few people is we'll kind of broaden the communications earlier on so that if it looks like it gains legs, nobody's particularly surprised, right? So, in the end, this is one of those decisions that everybody's got to figure out why they would say yes or no. Don't get me wrong. For me personally on this decision-making process, when I know and I remember how much of a community, let's just say, comments there were about putting a turf field in. And this is yet another thing that shows that if we didn't have that, this might not have even been a discussion point, far beyond marching band, because everybody knows my heart's there occasionally. But to that end, I think it's one of those things that people have to decide, is it about the process or is it about the students? And, everybody will make whatever decision is right for them. So if anybody has any more comments, I'm happy to give them an opportunity. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to formally authorize girls flag football as an IHSA interscholastic sport at Batavia High School beginning with the 2026-2027 school year.
So moved.
Motion by Rob,
Second.
second by Aaron. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Ryan,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Hilbert,
Yes.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Garrels,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas,
No, and can I make just a quick comment that this is not a no against the girls' flag football team? They are deserving our support, but a yes, I would be signaling that I'm accepting the administration bypass of the current policies and procedures. Furthermore, this creates inequities among the BPS employees and could show favoritism to one group over another.
Gray,
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes. All right. Item 8.2. Tony, I believe you're leading us on the next couple items?
Yes, I am.
Before,
Yeah.
hey, Mark, I know, thank you for being here. I know this is an incredibly busy week for you. Have a good night. Sorry, it's just,
Nope,
a
it's
lot
a,
of competitions happening this week.
yeah.
I'll get
All right, Tony, kick us off again.
Thank you. All right, so tonight we seek your approval of the fiscal year 2027 budget. Just to recap the process so far, we put the budget on, a preliminary version of the budget on public display in June. We held a public hearing on the budget in July, and here we are ready to adopt it this evening and set our course for the rest of the fiscal year that will end on June 30th of 2027. Overall, in terms of operating funds, we're looking at $108 million and some change in revenue with $101 million in spending. That coupled with transfers between funds to, particularly for capital projects to do the work that John just updated you upon, would yield a negative nearly $5 million deficit. So we're gonna spend $5 million more than we take in this year. And so here in this chart displays what has been happening since 2004. You can see a nice healthy gap between our revenues and expenditures. The green line being our revenues, the blue line being our expenditures. We're taking in more money than we're spending. In the middle of the graph here you see is the fiscal year 2027, which we're a month into. And you can see that we expect that that gap will narrow here over time and in the future, and I'll explain why that's the case as we go along here tonight. What's changing in fiscal year 2027 is the largest changes are costs for special education tuition, salaries and benefits, and that coupled with declines in revenue from the state and the feds. So overall, you see that we expect to collect another $4.3 million in local revenue, a decline of about $500,000 in other state revenue, and about $150,000 in federal revenue. And what are we spending that's different? Salaries and benefits. We're expecting to spend 15% more on our health insurance in particular. This coming year, the board will talk about that more next month with a recommendation from our insurance committee. We're facing some pretty significant increased costs for claims, and to keep up with those claims, we're going to have to increase our premiums. And ironically, that comes pretty close to matching, that those costs come close to matching the increase in salaries. It's essentially what we're paying folks this year, so it's going to be really narrow in terms of the difference. But what exceeds that just by a little bit is the cost for special education tuition. So when students have learning disabilities or more intense needs, in some cases where we cannot serve them here in our own schools, we work with other schools to serve their needs or other service providers, and those costs are increasing at a pretty significant clip. In some cases, there are students who move to town that have needs too. So it's not something that we always have direct control over. But those costs are actually what's driving, that's the largest cost driver of the rest. In terms of contracted services, we're seeing some declines both in that and capital outlay. We're spending a little bit less on capital projects this year and some services that go along with it. Where does our money come from? Looking at operating funds. A lot of it comes from Batavia, actually. The vast majority of it comes from taxpayers who live here in town. Being what's called a Tier 4 school district under the evidence-based funding formula, the new money that we get from the state of Illinois this year is $5,111. And that's not per student, that's just $5,000. $5,111, more than last year. And that is going to continue for the foreseeable future. Right? We are over 100% adequacy according to that formula, and so all the money that the state gives to education goes to basically everybody else. It doesn't come to us.
Can you hover over that EBF number?
Yeah, just over $5 million, $5.5 million.
You've done the math of what our 5% increase, or $5,000 increase is?
Yeah.
Still 5.5.
And federal grants too we expect those to be declining slightly. We don't expect the feds, what money we do get from the feds doesn't seem to be changing much, but the reason why it's down mostly is because we're spending our grants more efficiently than we used to, and there's not as much carryover from year to year. You're allowed to carry over a little bit of money from year to year if you don't spend it, but we're getting better and better at spending that money in the year that it's assigned to us, and so it has the appearance of that it's going down more than it is.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So on the tuition for special ed students increasing and federal grants decreasing, is there correlation, or tuition costs are still rising and federal money is still decreasing?
Yes.
Okay.
The state does provide more money for special education. We get what's called a categorical reimbursement for that, and so we'll get, because we're spending more, we'll get more. If you recall that last month I mentioned that we expected to lose over $1 million in state revenue. We're not gonna lose as much, in part because we're spending more on special education than we expect to, but this is one of those things where they don't have enough money to cover all the expenses, and so we have to estimate what they're gonna reimburse us for. So everybody puts all their expenses into the pot, and then the state divvies up everybody's reimbursements, and they only have a finite amount of money to give back. And so if you don't get all your money, nobody's gonna get all their money back when it comes to mandated categoricals like transportation and special ed. So we're gonna get a little bit more than we expected last time I spoke with you, but over the last 2 years now, we've lost almost $2 million in state revenue because they're putting it into EBF, and other more needy districts are receiving it, but for the mandated categoricals, there's just not enough money there to go around for all the expenses.
And just to be clear about evidence-based funding, when evidence-based funding came into effect in 2017, the mandated categorical reimbursements were funded at 100%. So the promised prorated rates of reimbursement that the state was going to give every school district for what Tony just mentioned, regular transportation, special education transportation, and special education tuition reimbursements, they were fully funded in 2017. And they stayed that way for several years. Over the last 4 to 5 years is when the state began reducing that funding level for this particular aspect of revenue for districts. This has hurt Batavia schools. This is where we're getting crushed right now. Because if you notice the drop, that's $500,000 versus the $5,111 we're receiving in an increase in evidence-based funding. So one of the things that we have been advocating for, when I say we, I mean me personally, along with Tony and other leaders who have talked to local legislators about this matter, we are also advocating on a state association level about this, is that the problem with reducing your MCAT funding, I'm so sorry, Tony, I just felt like this is a good
No, I
opportunity.
think this is excellent. I was doing a very poor job of explaining anyway, so that.
Okay, all right. One of the critical aspects about this is, even though we are in an amazing attempt to make sure we can bring and provide funding for our school districts and communities that need it, part of the problem is they reduce the proration levels of mandatory categorical reimbursements. I'm gonna call it MCATs at this point, okay? When we reduce those rates in the MCATs, the state reduces it, they're reducing it on all 4 tiers of school districts. So even tier 1 school districts, who may be receiving a much larger chunk of evidence-based funding, are still having the bottom of their foundation pulled from them to a certain level. because they're not receiving the same amount of funding from the MCATs either. So it's impacting everybody. The reason why it hurts us more is just because it way outpaces the amount of evidence-based funding we get because we are tier 4. And that's why I thought it was a good time to bring that out, because a year ago, BPS lost more MCAT funding. I think the number was around $1 million, you said, right? It was about 1.1. This year it's a little less, but this is a critical issue. You've probably, if you're paying attention to the media, there's a lot going on in Springfield talk right now about funding for certain school districts, or a school district. But there's also a lot of discussion about the model itself. So, because as you've heard from our leader colleagues out here, a lot of our contracted services such as transportation, those costs are not going down, and they will not go down. They're gonna go up. Health insurance costs continues to rise for every employer that offers health insurance to their employees. So we're not alone in it, but that's, I think, a really important thing to remember when we talk about what we're doing.
Just to put some numbers to it from a state level, the evidence-based funding formula was changed in 2017, and I think it took effect in 2018, if memory serves correctly. If not, it's something very close to that. In those succeeding nearly 10 years now, the state of Illinois has invested right around $3 billion more into state funding for education than they had at the time. So that's a lot of money for the state of Illinois. But at the same time, to accomplish that, they've peeled back nearly $1 billion in MCATs. And so they're getting to the point where they're severely underfunded. And these are things, the reason why they call them mandated is we have no choice. We must offer these services to our communities, to our students. But we're supposed to get money back. We're supposed to get reimbursed for them. But there's not enough money in the kitty to pay everybody back. And it hits the tier 4 districts the hardest. It hits everybody, but it hits the tier 4 districts the hardest. And so when you look at this number, money in, wow, that gets really painful when you look at where money comes from. You open your tax bill and you say, wow, Batavia Schools takes a lot of my money, and it's true. The vast majority of our budget comes from local taxpayers. And how that's changed from 2026 to 27, you can see that here. EBF is virtually the same. There's the $5,000 difference that doesn't even register on this graph. We're losing a little bit of other state revenue, and federal money is staying the same, which is what is really driving when we go back to this budget snapshot and we're looking in the future. The state of Illinois isn't going to get a whole lot more money. And so we're losing money from the states and the feds as time continues in the future. And our expenses are increasing faster than our revenues, and so that's putting more and more pressure on our budget. Not to mention all the work that we need to do on our facilities that are, in some cases, literally decades behind. So there's a lot of pressures on our budget today and looking into the future. So money out, we talked about that a little bit. The vast majority of our money that we spend is on instruction and support services. Barely a sliver that you can detect in community services. Payments to other agencies, a lot of that is tuition. We're paying other public schools tuition for special education services where we can't educate children here because of their needs. And then obviously, when you look at the type of spending, the majority of our budget goes towards salaries and benefits. If you compared us to, other school districts in the area, we'd have a relatively high amount of contracted services compared to rest because we outsource our custodial with GSF. They do fantastic work, by the way. I'm very impressed with the work that they did this summer. We also outsource our food service to Organic Life. They do a wonderful job. Josh talked about their participation rates increasing last spring. Our participation rates are in food service for meals, for lunch, and for breakfast are up markedly in the last few years. And we also outsource our transportation. So that together, we would have, I don't know how many more employees that would otherwise be directly on our payroll. And that shifts what otherwise would be costs for salaries and benefits into contracted services.
So on all those contracted services, you feel like we're getting a lot of bang for our buck by doing it that way as opposed to like having our own buses that were...
Well, that's interesting you bring that up. Aaron. Yes, I think especially historically that would be true. However, one thing I've been saying for years, griping about, is that costs for transportation have been increasing at a remarkable clip. It's a very challenging business because getting people to drive a bus is very challenging, and it's more and more expensive, and all of the safety features and all the expenses related to busing are increasing, as is fuel and those sorts of things. So one thing the state of Illinois, the state board did an analysis of these mandated categoricals, and costs for transportation, for outsourced transportation in particular, have doubled in the last 5 years statewide. So containing these costs when we're in this outsourced mode is going to be very challenging for the foreseeable future. It probably would be cheaper to insource right now, quite frankly, but the ability for us to do that is almost impossible.
I mean, in the
because
long run, it might be, but the startup costs would be
startup
incredible.
costs would be astronomical, yes, almost impossible. So anyway, that's just an interesting anecdote answer to your question.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, another question? And my question has, I'm not trying to lead anything, just.
I think Aaron was, I don't know.
No, I
This
wasn't.
is
I
pure
was just-
knowledge, like, I just wanna know. So for like transportation, so, if I understand, so the state of Illinois said school districts have to provide transportation? Is that like correct?
That is correct. There are some school districts that are exempt, depending on the year that they were chartered, or if they reorganized themselves after, I think, 1953 or something like that, then they're obligated to by statute, yes. I don't know the particulars, but it's something to that effect.
But it's only for certain children, doesn't mean for everyone.
It's not for everybody, no. It's a mile and a half.
Not for everyone,
You-
yes.
Yes. So for example, East Aurora, by the way, is a school district that was organized prior to that law taking effect. And they have chosen in recent years to bus their students.
Well, that's when we walked uphill.
So that's your solution, walk? Everybody should walk.
And it's down.
I go on the record saying that was Raquel that said that.
With a pail of your own water that you had
Yeah.
to drink during the day, right?
In the snow.
This just summarizes the differences between our expenditures, our revenues and expenditures, and what we've enjoyed in recent years, what we expect this year, but how that's going to decline quickly, especially with declining revenues. And we're spending fund balances, in particular on capital projects. Here's in blue our fund balances for each fiscal year, and then the 25% minimum policy that the board has to maintain cash flow. And so you can see that by 2030, as we're spending down our fund balances, we're getting pretty close to that 25% minimum. In terms of tax impact, looking at recent years on taxes for the median value home, which in this current year is $465,000 in Batavia. Taxes they've gone up, but they've been relatively stable in the last few years. We expect them to continue to be so in 2027. Value has increased substantially in the last few years. Anybody who is paying attention to the real estate market notices how things have shifted, and you probably, when you open your tax bills and what the assumed value of your home is, of course, has changed dramatically. And so Batavia is definitely winning in terms of in the sense that your home is appreciating in value. But what that does, and also, is it drives down the tax rate simultaneously, and that's because we're in a tax cap county, and it's an algebraic equation. We're capped at how much new money we can collect from taxpayers from year to year, and since that number is fixed, and your home, the value of an EAV is increasing district-wide, the tax rate actually has to get smaller to make the algebraic
That's
equation.
effectively because the value of your house is increasing faster than what we're allowed to take taxes on. So if your house is increasing by 6%, but our maximum cap is 5%, that's a loss at 1%. To make the math work, the tax rate has to drop to cover that difference.
Exactly. And the other thing that has dropped our tax rate is we paid off all our bonds, and so in the last couple of years, our tax rate went down because our authority to tax, to pay back those bonds over 20 years is, now that they're paid off, the authority to tax has gone with them. So that also dropped the tax rate as well. In terms of students and staffing, we expect enrollment. It's been relatively stable, plus or minus, 100 or so students here or there. We expect that for the foreseeable future. And so staffing, we expect to be proportionate and similar.
When will you have like our final enrollment number? Don't you have like in October?
Yes, we do what's called the fall housing report on October 1st. And so that's when we take we kind of do a dipstick and we compare every year on October 1st, what's our enrollment, and that's what we use for our modeling. Capital projects are here as well too. Obviously, we're spending a lot of money on capital projects in '27 to pay for the work that's going on at Louise and Storm and everywhere else.
Hold on 1 second before
Sure.
you move on, Tony.
Yeah.
So the blue is the allocated, what we plan on allocating for those upcoming projects?
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that those funds will be able to cover the scope of those projects?
Until
planned?
2030, yes. It's not necessarily everything we've identified in terms of capital projects, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna do all the warm, safe, dry
Right,
work.
yeah, because I'm assuming like some things have had to get pushed or, I mean,
So we're gonna have to talk about that. We'll bring more of that information to you in the fall and in subsequent months and years, because this is going to be an ongoing thing that we're going to have to manage. We might have to take another look. I mean, quite frankly, we might have to take a look at some of the projects we have planned and figure out other ways to do this, because it doesn't all fit.
because for example, the HC Storm had work done, and then basically on the other side of town, Louise White had very similar scope of work, and how much did that increase?
20%, almost 20%.
1 year.
Yeah, 1 year. Same scope of work, same stuff, but just this is where the market is for construction right now, is that's how unpredictable things are. Yeah. Yeah, it's very challenging. It's very hard to sit down and develop a budget and have assumptions when things are going up that fast. It's really challenging.
Yeah.
So here's a cap of what we're doing in '27, but we're gonna have to have some conversations what we do in '28, in '29 and '30, and how there's some work that we absolutely must get done. I know I've shared with the board the state of the plumbing, of the piping at JB Nelson School. That worries me, because it is deteriorating so quickly that if we get more leaks, especially if it's at the wrong time of the year, let's say it's in the middle of January in a real cold spell, we might not be able to maintain the heat in that building, and if we can't, literally every pipe in that building could freeze and bust and break, and we could lose the whole school all at once. That's how bad the piping is at JB Nelson. It needs to be worked on soon. We're rolling the dice by not doing it. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about capital projects tonight, because it's about stuff we know what we're doing in '27. We have to talk more about what's coming in the future, and we will have those conversations here with the board here in the coming months. But we do show this so that we can put it into context. One thing that I always say that's challenging is that what I'm showing you tonight is really the operational budget, but if you went and you looked at our official budget form, what the board is formally adopting tonight, those numbers don't necessarily foot. This page here explains how these numbers do foot, explains how all the funds fit together, and what we call state-paid pensions or on-behalf payments. We have to reflect those in our official budget forms, and that's about $25 million of money that doesn't actually hit our books at all, that comes in. We have to recognize it as revenue and expense that's paid for pensions by the state of Illinois, but they are for Batavia, because that's just how the pension systems work. So we have to show those here. But I'm trying to make sure that everybody understands. You can understand how things work from an operational lens and the mechanics of things, but then also make it foot to the official forms. And then lastly, if you're interested, you can see a breakdown of all of our funds, and you can do it by group, the all funds, the operating funds, and the non-operating funds, or any individual fund. So here you could grab, for example, let's say, the capital projects fund. We'll begin a balance of $313,000. We'll actually add about $250,000 to that fund balance, even though we're spending a significant amount of money. Let's see, how are we spending? We're spending $12.2 million out of that fund this year. We're gonna leave a couple $100,000 in there, but we'll spend back next year, so we use the capital projects fund as more along the lines of a savings account, so we can account for what is a tricky timing in terms of when construction is done and when we get our bills. It often straddles fiscal years, and so we don't always quite know when we have to pay the construction bill on this end of the budget planning process. But otherwise, we do have this new dashboard. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to use. It's built around essential questions like what does the budget look like overall? What's changed? You know, where do we get our money? Where does it go? Those sorts of things. And so I would encourage the board and the community to look at it. And if you have any questions or thoughts or concerns as to how we could show this in a way that would be more easily understood or more relatable, we welcome your feedback, so that we can make our finances as transparent as we can make them, so that the board can make informed decisions and the community knows where their tax dollars go, because that's a lot of money.
Maybe you should put emojis next to each thing.
Sad faces.
Next to the tax impact.
Thumbs up.
That's where he draws the line. I'm not gonna do that.
I've never heard that.
That's a good one.
Good or bad? Yeah, crying eyes or smiley face. Is that what you're saying? I mean, I want to say to Tony, or Dr. Inglese, that when I started on the board 5 years ago, when we came to this discussion, as I recall, we got a giant document, Camphor, I think it was called. It's like 140 pages. And I remember with you all the time going into your office, say, Tony, you got to make this easier. I'm not saying I'm the reason why you did this, but like I would have, like, people aren't going to be able to digest this. And so I know you've spent a tremendous amount of work to put it in this sort of format. And I just want to say, well done, because I think this is really, I mean, it's about as simple as you can get on something very complex.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add, so I echo his Vice President Kilberg's comments about the presentation of this material. It is very clear to me and, you know, succinct. You know, from a high level, I look at this and should I feel good? I see the revenue line projected out to 2031 above our expenditure line.
And that changed. I thought the last meeting it was intersecting there. So I don't know what your crystal ball did, but
Yeah, well,
He likes
I think
that
what
crystal
doesn't,
I like this one better than last
The
one.
other crystal ball.
well, you will notice though too, so what I'm not doing a good job of showing here is that
You're dropping that.
it's
down.
dropping here and our fund balances go down. So what is tricky here is that we're transferring money out that makes that number go down because we're spending our fund balance on capital projects. And so,
He's funding the separation with.
Yeah.
and I might not be
Save
showing
money.
that well enough for people to understand, quite frankly. So yes, the operating, we do have more money coming in than we're spending, but we're transferring money out into capital projects faster than that gap is narrowing. And so if we didn't have to spend so much on capital projects, we'd be fine.
Yeah,
But we do.
yeah.
So we're gonna have to figure
Like this
that
in
part
Raquel
out.
terms, it's still sad face.
Know that.
But I'll
Unfortunately.
still say, even with those comments, even this chart right here, and you're still above the minimum threshold, right?
Yes.
So, obviously, no one likes to see our fund balance go down, and we'd rather keep it as funded and high as possible, but, I don't know, I just, it's not like a doomsday picture that you're painting or anything like that, and, so, I know there's still a lot of work to be done there, but, I appreciate the update.
I appreciate it too. Thank you. One thing I would say is that you made some comments about capital projects, and I started to make some of those refinements. And what I realized is we need a separate dashboard just for capital projects, and so that's my plan, I think, to get more, to help everybody in the community understand, especially this conversation, what's driving some of these costs. We need to really know what needs to be done. What can we defer? What are the costs of deferring it? What's the value we get if we don't, and those sorts of things. And so those are the next steps, I think, for us to delve into, because it isn't doomsday, but we're gonna have to make some decisions. We have to make choices between where we're gonna put the dollars.
Well, and how do you share this information with the public? I know it's out there, but how do we make, the taxpayers of Batavia more aware of what's going on?
It's a good question. I love to talk about it, so anybody who wants to
Okay,
learn
but do
more,
we,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You're gonna have like coffee shop forums,
Yeah.
Tony?
Can't you tell?
Social media, newsletters, I don't know, I guess not a social media topic.
Yeah.
It seems like there's gotta be, some information sharing methods. that
Tell
we
the
can-
story, yeah, I agree.
Other comments or questions?
I just have two more. One, I'll say again, this is good. But even though we're maybe a smiley face today, if someone says, what keeps you up at night, is this, going out far, because costs are rapidly, every category of expenses is going up rapidly. And our revenue, basically, the state is giving us less and less, and we're more heavily dependent on our local taxpayers, and thank you for them. But that's got it only impacts in a certain way. It can only go up so much, thankfully, because we pay taxes. We don't want it to skyrocket. But I guess what I would say, if I can get on my soapbox, we're going to be having election season, and when your politicians mandate things, you always need to ask them, this is a great program, but how are we paying for it? Because without funding and just saying, well, I know as a tier 4, not many people are going to cry tears for us, but if you keep going out and we keep trending in this way, there's going to be some very difficult decisions, and in the end, students are going to lose and the community is going to suffer because we're going to have to start making cuts. They're going to impact children's education.
Anything else? I mean, on top of what you're saying, there's every once in a while, there's some politician that runs around screaming, freezing property tax increases. Just chills me to the bone. Because one, it doesn't mean anything to them, even if they just pass something that says it does it, but it means everything to every community, every teacher, every student. Because that's our, at least particularly for us, that's our 90-some% funding methodology.
Yeah.
So it really undercuts us. And two, on a more humorous note, I'd like to congratulate you personally for getting through an entire budget discussion and not saying tax anticipation warrant. That's an inside joke. I'll explain it to some others later.
Tony'd be happy to explain it.
Yeah, we could.
At this point, I can explain.
And I just wanted to thank our Community Voices group. They did go through the dashboard, provide quite a bit of feedback
Oh, that's
to
great.
us. And Tony took some of their feedback to help explain some of the words and terms in this that they didn't understand what it meant. So thank you to Tony for taking some of their feedback, and thanks to the community members for their feedback.
Can you give us a little idea of who the Community Voices group is?
So we have 40 members of the Community Voices group. We went out through all of our communication channels, seeking individuals to raise their hand and volunteer for this. Every category from people that will have students in our district to people that have never had students in our district are part of this. A broad range of demographics and people from around the community.
I've heard you talk about it before, but I'm not sure it's ever been kind of stated as that as a community resource that people are supporting the district in, so.
Yes, they are.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion to adopt the FY 2027 budget as presented.
So moved.
So moved by Aaron,
Second.
second by Rob. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Garrels,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Yes.
Kilburg,
Yes.
All right, item 8.3, fund transfer resolution to implement the FY 2027 budget that we just approved.
We did. So this helps us effectuate that budget as a key component. So these are the transfers in particular that we're talking about. We're moving money from the education fund and from the operations fund to pay for the actual projects in the capital projects fund itself proper. That totals $11,655,855. So it's not an insignificant sum. What largely drives that $5 million deficit that you see this year. It's not a structural deficit. This is a one-time adjustment. We held a public hearing on these fund transfers last month, along with the public hearing for our budget. And so with the budget that you just adopted to make it happen, we got to make this transfer, and I would ask the board to authorize us to do so with the resolution that is attached.
Any questions or comments? All right, I will entertain a motion to adopt the attached resolution transferring $11,655,855 to the Capital Projects Fund as approved in the FY 2027 budget.
So moved.
So moved by Tara,
Second.
second by Aaron. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Garrels,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Kilberg,
Yes.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes. Motion passes. All right, approval of IGA for property tax assessment matters. And if we haven't heard enough of Tony, too bad. One more.
Yeah. This is a intergovernmental agreement that requires the board's approval to coordinate efforts among the public bodies, the Batavia public bodies, to intervene on property tax appeals or property tax complaints that are not residential, that could potentially disrupt the balance of commercial, industrial, and residential properties. So as you know, I mentioned earlier, there's a tax cap. And so since we are capped, there's a finite amount of money that we can collect from one year to the next that increases by a maximum amount. It's CPI or 5%, whichever is less. And because it becomes an algebraic equation, then if let's say there's a commercial enterprise on Randall Road, they file a tax complaint and they file a appraisal of their property that says that they're being taxed at an unfair rate because their property is worth much less than it is. What ends up happening is, let's say that the Kane County Board of Review says, yep, yes, indeed, you're being overtaxed. What ends up happening is the next year, all the other taxpayers pay the difference in what that company's tax rate went down. And so what can happen over time is because they have a lot of lawyers that work for them and they pay for appraisers to, in some cases, I would say, provide unfair evidence in their favor, that can shift the tax burden to the residents in an unfair fashion. The residents would end up paying for commercial properties or industrial properties at a rate that is just not fair. And that's not to say that, in some cases, they have very fair arguments to make, and they are being overtaxed. So the whole premise here is that we want everything to be fair. And being is that we are the largest taxing body of Batavia, and any school district is in any community in Illinois, we have always foot the bill in intervening. We have criteria that we use to intervene in those matters to make sure that the Board of Review or the Property Tax Appeal Board at the state level has the right evidence that they're considering with the taxpayers' interests in mind. Now, historically, because we're, as I always say, and here's another bingo word for you, we're kind of the biggest pigs at the trough, the tax trough, being in the school district. We just have paid those bills. We have lawyers that do that work for us and coordinate that. But we have been talking about sharing the respective costs of that with the other taxing bodies because they very much have a vested interest in ensuring those assessments are fair too. And so we finally got around to putting it to paper, and this IGA would implement that. The school district would serve as liaison. Our legal counsel would do the work. We'd share the information with the taxing bodies, and if they feel as though this isn't in their interest, they could object and say, we don't wish to be part of this particular intervention. And that is well within their right, but at least it gives us a way to, as a community of taxing bodies, partner together in the shared interests of the taxpayers so that everybody's getting a fair shake. And we're, as taxing bodies, sharing a representative cost. In this case, the cost would be shared on the tax rate, so it's proportional. So we pay roughly, I think it is about $10,000 to $15,000 a year in legal fees for this work. And since we're the largest, we're gonna obviously continue to pay the vast majority of that amount, probably upwards of 80%. But, for the other taxing bodies, it's probably a few $100s to maybe a couple $1,000s a year. And I think it's just a great way to partner with one another, coordinate that work, and make sure that everybody's getting a fair shake. Nobody's paying more for their taxes than they ought to be.
And everyone else is voting on this, like, this month?
Yeah, I think so. So my understanding is the city council approved it last night.
Okay.
So this would be between the city government, city council, the library district, the park district, and Wabansie Community College. And I think everybody's approving this within the next, week or two, is my understanding.
How often do assessment appeals meet the criteria that would be affected by the?
So we happen to it's very hard to predict, when somebody decides that they have a case to make. And the way that assessments are done is a quadrennial, and so they do them every 4 years, and they have a tendency to fall on the first of the 4 years, depending on where you are in the taxing cycle. So, at the beginning of a quadrennial, you definitely see more. But the vast majority of them, I would say, are for properties that are outside of Batavia proper. So about 75% of the appeals that we would get would not necessarily pertain to this IGA, because we don't have contiguous boundaries, The park district is not the library's district, which is not the city, which is not the Batavia schools. We have a pretty healthy chunk of Aurora and North Aurora properties, and that's where a lot of our tax complaints come from. And so this wouldn't necessarily, everything that we're involved in would not necessarily mean the city's involved. Does that make sense?
Yes. I had asked, like, how would the legal counsel be chosen, but I think I was going into this thinking, like, in the past, that each taxing body was, like, using their own legal counsel.
And they often are sometimes.
Okay, so,
And
but now it's just gonna be the school district
Yeah.
is going to represent all the taxing bodies.
Yes, and so what can happen here is that, a taxing body, if they wanted their own legal counsel to represent them on a certain matter, they would peel out of the group for that particular matter and have their legal counsel do the work. It'd probably be more expensive for them to do that, but they would be within their rights to do so. Or they could just object and say, we don't want to participate in this particular matter. But by and large, they're not intervening in most of these matters as we are, because they don't have the resources or as much at stake as our taxpayers do.
I imagine this could arguably also grow over time as, if there's more properties or more development, particularly on the east side with large box properties type things, that they could get very particular about and argumentative about the value of their property.
Yes.
Based on their ability to actually use it or not use it, or, whatever.
Right.
So,
Yes.
Makes a lot of
And yeah,
sense.
we're not getting into residential properties or anything like that here. This isn't about,
no.
that is not on the scale of what we have the
No.
resources or the time to get into.
No, this is almost entirely commercial.
And this is just ensuring that the Board of Review or the Property Tax Appeal Board has the evidence, the reasonable evidence that they need to consider these matters. We're not, it's up to them to make these decisions, but in some cases, they don't have the resources or the information to make an informed decision in all cases. So, yeah, that's it.
Any other questions?
Just so for clarity, if it's a property that exists like in Aurora, where it's Batavia School District, but other taxing bodies outside of, publics, we would still potentially be taking 100% of that cost then, because they wouldn't be part of this agreement if it's like Aurora's.
Exactly, but, and I would say in 9 times out of 10, we have what I would call a gentleman's agreement with the city of Aurora, and they will oftentimes will share, we happen to have the same council, and we'll share the bill, so we'll split the bill, depending on the tax rates. So we still pay the vast majority of it, but they'll pay about, 10% of it.
All right, if there are no further questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement regarding property tax assessment matters among Batavia School District 101, the Batavia Park District, the Batavia Public Library District, the City of Batavia, and the Wabansie Community College as presented.
So moved.
So moved by Raquel,
Second.
second by Tara. It's on fire today. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Gray,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Kilburg,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Yes.
Garrels,
Yes.
Arlandu,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, Brad, lead us on item 8.5, bullying policy update.
Yep, I am coming to you tonight because by September 30th, I am required by the State Board of Education to submit the board's policy on bullying. So policy 7180, we've talked about this quite a bit over the past couple of years. There haven't been any legal updates, so press has not generated a new policy for us to consider. But we need to make sure that the board is comfortable with the policy, so I can submit that. I have to get a little statement signed by Craig to say that the board has discussed this and they're ready to submit their policy. So that's a due date for me. It's also, the beginning of a new school year. We want to make sure all of our students are safe, so it's a good time to just kind of publicly put out that people can refer to policy 7180 and the resources that are there if this happens to their child or their family. So that is what I'm seeking tonight, is the board's authorization to have Craig sign a piece of paper that I have to submit with our bullying policy.
Any questions before I ask Madeline? How does, no, go ahead.
I have some questions. There's some specific wording in the policy about this 2-year review, and it says, the process shall include, without limitation, the frequency of victimization, student, staff, and family observations of safety at school, identification of areas of school where bullying occurs, the types of bullying utilized, and bystander intervention or participation. I think most of those we've seen data or some, the one thing what I don't remember seeing is bystander intervention or participation.
That's usually done at our schools through bullying prevention, like general education pieces for all of our students on how to not be a bystander in those situations.
Okay, so it's not necessarily like a data point that can be.
No, it's more general education for all students than how to respond to those situations if you see them. And Holly, can you drive onto the website? This is another good, it's not as fancy as Tony's dashboard. But if you go to the very bottom of the website, this is good because there's a lot of things that people might be curious, and you go to public records in FOIA. Thank you. And you can see there's a lot of very commonly asked things around the school district. So like how to do a FOIA, what our general organization is. You're gonna have to keep scrolling here. The budget that we just talked about, where are our schools, who's on the Board of Education. These are things that are frequently requested, our fees, and then these are frequently requested documents so that people would not have to FOIA these and then just have ready access to them. If you go down just a little bit more, there's our policy on bullying. Again, we tried to put that on the website. And then an evaluation and assessment of that policy 7180. So I do this on an annual basis. I look at all of our data from the year, and the data is both housed in our student information system, so PowerSchool houses this information, and then it also reported, we have a separate form for bullying because the state requires us to report this data to them as well as a part of the Racism-Free Schools Act. So I try to put into simple language, a summary of what's happening with this policy. And some of those things that you just mentioned, Kristen, like where does this happen, what are we doing, those types of things. I try and summarize that in general ways, not to lead people to guess who's who. Some general ways about how we're implementing policy 7180. So that's available on an annual basis for the public to take a look at as well.
Any other questions?
I've got one. I mean, we're student representatives, and I feel like this is very important policy because we are students, and this affects us directly, and the students that we are representing, right? And so I've got a question about the actual policy behind the bullying and what is, if there is any changes behind it and why there is. Just because I want to understand the your point of view on it, and so that we can give our fullest answer as student representatives on how we feel or any questions or comments we may have.
No, very good question. I appreciate you asking that. So the board's policy, there's whenever a law changes. So 2 years ago, there were a lot of changes to school code and law. And then an organization, the Illinois School Board Association, has a number of lawyers that craft policies that are example policies for boards. And we adopted their policy because they know what the ins and outs of the law. So if there are changes to that, they would give us recommendations on what that should be. Where we have a lot of control is the policy, procedures, and communication around the bullying policy. So when you go into the policy manual, on the right-hand side are exhibits and administrative procedures, like how we should implement that. We have a lot of control on that. And that's really the board's direction to us on how to implement this policy. So last year, we created some visual representations of how people would navigate that. Because obviously, if that's happening to you in school and you're talking to your parents about it, like that's a pretty upsetting situation. So we want to make sure that that's easy to follow. The most important thing that we reiterate time and time again is you have to tell us, right? If something's happening and we don't know about it, we can't take action. But when you do tell us, we will take action. And that includes investigating that, interviews, that's part of the investigation process. We'll make a determination, and the state of Illinois has a very detailed definition of what bullying is. It's about a severe impact on that student, repeated behaviors. Sometimes it falls into, we have to look at, is this bullying due to a student's sexual identity? Is it based on a disability? All of those factors. So protected class, looking at that is an important part of that. So that's a process that our administrators go through. We receive training on this on an annual basis to go through this because it's not always easy to do that because these are emotional situations, both for the family and for the school. We don't want to see our students going through that. And then we make a determination if it's bullying or not. To me, the determination is not the important part. It's what we do with that information after that, right? We want to make sure the student feels welcome in our schools, that they feel like they can access their education, because if you're being bullied, the last thing you want to do is probably come to school, right? And when you don't come to school, there's going to be like academic and social consequences to that. So like to me, the important part is what are we doing to make sure that you feel safe, that you feel comfortable? Do we need a safety plan? What does that look like? What's going to make you feel safe? So I know that your principal and assistant principal there have been through this process a number of times, and we have tools in the toolbox that we can use in certain situations to help students feel better about coming to school, being a part of the school community. A lot of people are like, well, do you do peer mediation? Oftentimes, someone who's being bullied wants nothing to do with their bully, right? So there's no time to heal that relationship. Sometimes that does work out where they want that. So the determination, it could be like harassment, it could fall into another category. But to me, the important part is what we do with that information. So that's kind of that's how we operate with the bullying policy and implementing that. Does that answer your question? Right?
Yeah, I had one too. So
Yeah, Claire, please.
you said the lawyers create like the policy.
Yeah.
And like the recommendations they would give you on the updates of their policy. Would you use those recommendations, or would you also look at the data coming from the schools of bullying as well to update your policy?
I think the data is important for updating like how we operate within the school district. So that would be the administrative procedures, the exhibits, the articles that are there on the side. The policy is like general guidance, but we have a lot more tools in the toolbox to do like how we implement that. What's working, what's not working, those types of things. Those things can change. I don't have to go to the school board all the time to implement those changes with, the school board process is pretty slow, but we can do things more rapidly to intervene with students in that situation.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I feel like we usually receive like a yearly snapshot of this is the number of incidents and this is how many were considered bullying, but we don't see a year-to-year comparison. So I guess personally, I would like to see a year-to-year comparison to understand whether the policy and the procedures that follow are effective at reducing bullying. And my other comment would be that it seems to me it would make more sense to do the evaluation shortly after the data presentation so that it's more fresh in our minds. Because we do get not only information about bullying, but, you know, sense of belonging, to get a snapshot, because there are so many incidents that don't meet the legal definition of bullying, but are doing harm to our students. So I think to be able to.
Right, attendance could be a proxy for that as well.
Right, take a big look at everything and then review the policy shortly after that.
So this is about a approval of the policy, or to notify the state as to what the policy is. It doesn't mean the policy isn't fungible later on, but primarily the state does not seem to be currently caring about the implementation of said policy for administrative procedures and the board of policy procedures and whatnot, right?
Yeah, they're requesting this data, but I don't know what's happening with that data at the state level, and that could just be my ignorance with it, but I would love to see, like, us be able to
It's
do
going
some
on a report card
comparisons,
or
or like
whatever.
what's working, what's not working, what's best practice, but I have not seen any of that information from the state.
I mean, does anybody in the board have an issue with the administration investigating an ability or timing to bring that information to us if it's not, if it fits within a you know, current practices and a presentation period?
So we do like a late May is our data, or early June is our data presentation, so sometime after that.
Right, or if we, it's supposed to be done every 2 years, so obviously it's not this coming year, but doing it now and trying to recall what the data was at the data presentation, it'd be nice if it was maybe the following meeting.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, because at this point, we're not amending our policy, we're submitting our current policy as it is, effectively. So if there were tweaks, somewhat contemporaneous with the data would make sense.
Is the current policy just basically the press?
It's-
It's
Yes.
pretty standard.
They're probably looking at it, trying to figure out who's using that or who's not, and then tracking data. Okay. Part of it also, as a part of the sequence of evaluations we're looking at, is also a parent group, as I understand it. We've typically been using BIC for that as well, correct?
Yeah, we're gonna make changes to any discipline policy. We're required to have a parent-teacher advisory council, and we've been using BIC as that vehicle. They've been very good. Tom can attest to this, but they're very good at giving us feedback on different policies, and specifically related to discipline.
And they meet regularly, and they're a group that, you know, flexes a little bit, but not, it's pretty consistent. Okay.
Could-
All right.
I don't want to volunteer our student board members, but could they be
But I'm going
involved
to.
in that big meeting if they want to be? So they could be involved in the.
There's usually
We
a
do
good
have a-
breakfast at it.
Yeah.
We do have, we
Donuts.
do have an update along those lines. I'll let
Okay.
you know.
Drew, you
Great.
can attest to breakfast.
Yeah, you know, what I recommend is effectively two liaisons to them, meet with them and talk about it and see if they want to participate in that process.
We've been talking about
We
something.
have
like that.
we have some comments on
Sweet.
that.
Great.
So you're already ahead
So
of it.
just wait, you know, you're gonna get a good response here from me.
Okay, all right.
Teaser.
All right, are there any more questions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to authorize the board president to sign a statement about this policy to be submitted with our policy.
So moved.
Motion by Aaron,
Second?
second by Raquel. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Brian,
Yes.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Garros,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Hilberg,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Item 8.6, adoption amendment of board policy, second reading. Tony, I think you're leading us, or Tom?
Sure. This is a second reading of policies that were presented last month. Actually, I think Raquel went through a quite lengthy summary of all the various aspects. So I would, if you have any questions, you should ask her. Her or Aaron.
Eric's like punching it over.
Sweet.
Go to the YouTube video and watch that.
But I would summarize it to say that all of these changes came from the quarterly update from press, and so that's the organization that monitors all the state statutes, especially the school code, and ensures that the board has a set of policies to work from that comply with state law and the administrative regulations that come from the State Board of Education. One change that we're making here, just in general to our practice, that I think is a better practice, is that we're noting when press does their 5-year annual review. So they'll either update a policy because something in statute changed and it compels a modification, but they also do a 5-year review of all of their policies. And so they go through various sections and review them at least once every 5 years to make sure that they're compliant. And here we're beginning to note that if we review a change in a policy, press says we don't need to update it, we're noting it in our policies that it's been reviewed, because in some cases you can look at our policy and be like, wow, you haven't updated that in 15 years. And the reality is, we have reviewed it, but we haven't made any changes to it in 15 years. And now we'll start adding reviewed last. So it'll take probably at least another 5 years to get everything at least on that review cycle, but you'll have a better picture of, I guess, of the non-staleness of our policies.
Awesome.
And I'll just say for our new board members and our student board members that Raquel and I are on the policy committee, and we meet on not a regular basis, but as needed by press updates or if something's urgent. But those are public meetings, they're posted, and people can attend them, and board members do. So if the public wants to see that process in action, it's open.
Very exciting, too.
Says the guy who loves budgets.
That's coming from
Really
Tony, wow.
Yeah.
Are you smiling?
I think he means it.
Mr. Excitement over here.
He's genuinely.
There's differing opinions on that, I would say. But
All right, any specific questions that Raquel can answer? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt or amend the policies as presented and applicable.
So moved.
So moved by Raquel,
Second.
second by Tara. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Gonzalez Thomas,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Bryan,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Garrels,
Yes.
Hilbert,
yes.
All right, motion passes. All right. Item 9, board comments, superintendent comments. Tom?
Yeah, before I do, Aaron and Rob, do you have space that you're letting, or giving our students to speak, or I can do that now?
I think, Craig, you were gonna
I
let
was gonna
them.
give them a chance at the beginning of board comments to introduce themselves.
Perfect,
and-
I'm done.
a few
Okay, then
things.
here are my comments. They're brief. Just wanted to share that, as you all know, we've opened the year. Last week was a really busy week as we continue that busyness and excitement into this week. Welcoming back first all of our teammates across the district. Thank you, Sarah Barrett, for all the work, energy, organization, and passion you put to making sure that our teammates as a district family get off on the right foot. So thank you. Lots of great comments about it. And it was a great time just to get together as a district. It's not a lengthy amount of time, but it's a good time to remind that we are a district together and working towards the betterment of teaching and learning and experiences for our kids. Special thanks to our staff across the district. You heard stuff coming from Mr. Mickle tonight, our buildings and grounds, custodial maintenance, our technology teams that have done so much. And so one of the things that you didn't see in the picture is Dave and his team are going in while construction's happening. They have to hardwire the building. And so they're right there with the crews as they're trying to set up, because when we swipe into buildings, when we have the cameras, when we have telephone lines, everything that's happening technology-wise, Dave and his team are right next to our construction contractors. So huge thanks, Dave, to you and your team. Again, and then teachers, support staff, and administration for really making sure we started off the year on the right foot. As you saw, we got an update on our summer construction. Work continues to progress. It will be done. And I want to also special shout out to HCS, Louise White, the staff and the team for the mindset that they had, people helping each other, appreciation to our RJAC teams that also went over to help out our buildings. I think there was a lot of patience and a lot of, again, that team mindset to get through it all together. And, as many of you were at opening day with students coming back to the buildings. So board, hopefully you saw that energy and excitement. I did not see one single student crying at all. I know there were some. I heard there were some. I did not see any. I did see some parents crying, so I had to console them. But And so, and then lastly, you know, thank you again to our families for sending their children to us. One of the things that you've heard as a board that we talk about is that attendance matters in our school district, right? What we know is for our students to grow, to learn, to be a part of a community, we need them present. And so huge thanks to our families for entrusting that with us. And just to give you an idea, our attendance rate clip on day one was 98% in student attendance. That is a huge number. And so I think that really shows and shines through everything that, you know, kids want to come into our schools, parents want to send their kids to our schools. So thank you. And that goes to the efforts of every employee group that I've talked about here. And so lastly, I'm just really excited about what lies ahead for this year. There's going to be, I want you to envision that image of progress where everyone likes to want progress to be that straight, clean, linear line on a graph. But if any of us know about change and what it takes to like improve systems and keep growing, it's a really squiggly line that you want continuing going into that upper right quadrant. And so, our teachers are experiencing a lot of curriculum implementation this year. Support staff have undergone tons of training already and will continue to be right there with our teachers and administrators. Our principals are leading the way. There's a lot of good stuff we have in store this year. And, we're gonna keep elevating everything we do well, while we're also addressing things that we know we can improve upon. All right, and so that's it. I'm really grateful, Claire and Arnaud. I know you're gonna be busy. You already are, so thank you for being here tonight. All right, I will shut up. That's it.
All right, well, this is the time for board comments. I usually make Kristen go first, but today I'm gonna ask Claire and Arnaud to, formally introduce themselves. Most of us were not involved in the kind of interview process, though we've heard a lot of great things about you. So feel free to kind of let us know, a little bit about you, what makes you tick, and what you might want the community to know about why you're here. You can, yeah.
Hi, I'm Claire Lindstrom. I went to H.C. Starr Elementary School and Berthold Middle School. I'm a swimmer and have been swimming club since I was 8, and now I swim for the high school co-op and West Chicago Sharks. Actually, one of my coaches works at Hoover Wood, so she saw me speak the other day, and I'm really excited for this year, and I have a busy schedule, but I'm looking forward to it. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Arno. I'm a senior at BHS. I've been going to Batavia School since 2016, having gone to Hooverwood and HC Storm. I love this district. It has been a home for me for the last, 12 years now? Or no, a little bit, 10 years. Thank you, bad math. No, but this district has been home for me for the last decade. And it's brought me through, it has helped me grow to the person that I am now, and being able to be here and give students the voice that they need. Because as great as this district is, every district will have its problems. And for student voices to be there, I am honored to be one of them, to be able to tell everyone here, hey, this is what needs to get done, let's do it. And I'm very excited for this year. I've set it up so that I can put as much of my energy into this while still keeping my grades up at school and maintaining my physical health, because those two are the most important to me. But then being able to do this is just as pressing and paramount. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Good start for you guys, so thank you today.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna go to
Okay.
Kristen. Or Rob's gonna jump first?
Well, let me, because I'll just build on it.
No, good. Kristen maybe fourth today.
Sorry. So, I hope you guys got a sense of, just the character of these two, and even when they asked Brad some questions, how engaged they already are. And they told me that they didn't plan it, but they do match. I don't know if you guys noticed that. That's how in sync they
And her
really are.
backpack does too, actually.
But no, in all seriousness, we had a chance to meet
Last
a
Monday.
week ago. Yeah, 8 days ago, I guess. And we try to come up with a plan, talk about, how we envision this going. And I think Craig made the comment when he gave the oath that we're all gonna learn together on this. And that truly is what it's gonna be. it's gonna be a learning experience for everyone. So we may trip up, and we're gonna do a lot of learning along the way, and we'll probably come back and say, we're gonna do this better the next time, as we move forward. So in a way, they have like the toughest jobs starting off in these positions, because they're gonna be, you know, quote-unquote guinea pigs on a lot of things on how we do it. So appreciate you guys kind of stepping into that, so really look forward to that. Okay, so what our plan is here is we met, we want to start getting them touch points, and they've already started. You've probably seen them at some school events already, meeting. I think they met with principals, and they were at the introduction event a few days back as well. And they're going to continue with those touch points. So some of the things, the BIC meeting, we're gonna try and schedule them to go introduce themselves at the BIC meeting. Another important thing to point out is, you know, they're both high school students, obviously, but they're gonna be representative of the student voice for the whole district. So that's just not the high school students. That's a key point here that we wanna convey. They're gonna go out to the elementary schools, they're gonna go out to Rotolo, as well as the high school, and really solicit and the student viewpoint, so all students, you know. So and so with those touch points, visiting the schools, they're gonna go to some of the meetings. Homecoming, I think you're gonna do something for the homecoming event. They're gonna work on a survey that they're gonna send out, and that's gonna be worked in conjunction with Dr. Smith and the Student Services Committee, developing that survey to gather some more feedback. And we're gonna take all that input from all those touch points and try and synthesize that into some trends and ideas. And we'd like to come out of there with maybe, it could be just one, maybe it's two, but one or two initiatives that they would work on. So, you know, we were talking about the bullying, right? Maybe from their feedback, they identify an issue there that they can really focus in on and work throughout the school year. But it could be anything. So we're gonna let the data dictate what that should be, and the feedback from the students. And then as each month in this meeting, we'll get updates on how they're doing, working on that initiative. And then I think another valuable piece that they're gonna add and contribute is what you just saw today, was they heard a topic that was of interest to them, of their peers, and they asked some questions and some follow-up. So looking forward to those interactions as well as we move forward. So that's the plan, and that's where we're gonna go with. What did I miss? Did I miss anything, guys?
We are meeting the Monday before every board meeting.
Yes.
So we either meet in person or virtually, and so we can kind of just collaborate as we move along, so that when we come to the meetings, you guys feel prepared. And we do have a game plan moving forward, so you can maximize your contribution.
Yeah. Okay, any from the board, any questions?
Yeah, any questions to them? Okay. If you want to jump right into your board comments, if you have any. Go for it.
I hope everyone had a great start of this school year. I want to reiterate the thanks. From what I understand, the all-hands-on-deck approach to getting HC Storm and Louise White up and going seemed like it was a very collaborative effort that people went above and beyond to help out. So appreciate all the effort that went into those schools there. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Welcome to our new student board members. I look forward to hearing your feedback and questions. I'm excited to have you here. I also was going to thank everyone that was involved in making sure our buildings were ready. But there were some challenges, and it got done. And there's still work to be done, but from what I heard, it was impressive the way that people came together and contributed and got the buildings ready. And then I just wanted to thank AGS. I was assigned AGS as a get to know AGS school, and I've been to a couple of their events, and they were very welcoming, and they've sent me some invitations to other events throughout the school year, so I look forward to getting to know AGS. And the new floors look amazing.
So I just have a quick question too before, so with Pritzker signing the new cell phone ban, do we need to have a policy meeting about that, do you know?
Yeah, it'll go into effect in the 27-28 school year.
Oh, okay.
But currently as it stands, the parameters of that bill, our district's practices are already meeting it and our policies and procedures that we have in place. So a lot of it is, recently, some of our, for example, Mr. Lewis at the RMS clarified what does away mean more specifically now, right? Or we're talking about smartwatches. We're specifically cleaning up or tightening up some of the language and procedures on some things for that bill. But the bill in itself, we already have a very compliant process in the district.
And you may not know, so I'm just asking, will that bill though, does that encompass like the meta glasses?
I don't know
I think so.
specifically. but-
They're shaking their heads, yes.
There's been a lot of chatter.
Meta glasses was specifically written, but.
Because it just says like electronic, wireless, personal wireless devices, so.
It's kind of like one of those things like, with the smartphone, one of the things we're starting to inform parents of, the moment your child's smartphone turns into a communication device instead of a watch, and it's no longer a timepiece only, we are going to address that. And so there's been some communications from principals to homes saying, please don't use your smartwatch with your child as a way to communicate. Call the main office and we'll deliver whatever message it is you have to get. So the meta glasses, it's pretty similar, I think, that if it's prescription glasses, I don't know, people are more familiar with this, use it as glasses.
Meta glasses are like AI glasses where you can, it's like basically like a Google.
Like a recording device.
Glasses, like
can
they're
record.
insane.
Yes.
They're really cool, but.
No one uses them as prescription, they mainly use them as recording devices or,
Yeah.
ways to listen to music or watch videos, that's mainly what they're used for.
So that would qualify then as, okay, then that's not an acceptable, you know what I mean, like.
Right, I just wanna make sure, cause like, since those are coming out, and, I mean, it could be also a security risk,
A
you
lot
know?
of, a lot of issues with those.
Yeah, so I was just curious, I just didn't know, like, if that, so, okay.
No, go, I assume that wasn't the extent of your comments.
Yeah, I was just making sure, so, okay. So, just to go back, I wanna say clearly that I support the girls' flag football program, and I wanna see the female athletes succeed. However, I asked many questions tonight, because the board values transparency, but the implementation of the flag football program has not been transparent. And to be frank, the process felt bypassed and felt handled under the radar. Professionally, I'm a quality compliance manager tasked with upholding internal and regulatory protocols. Tonight, our district had a major nonconformance regarding our own policies, and as a board, we have a fiduciary duty to BPS residents to create and enforce these rules. Even if this is a nonconformance doesn't cause immediate harm to everyone, ignoring our own system erodes trust with our stakeholders in the community. We have established policies and procedures for a reason, and bypassing them creates avoidable conflict and liability for the district. But deviations like this occur in professional operations. Standard practice requires documented corrective and preventative actions to ensure it does not happen again. While I am a single board member and cannot dictate administrative actions, my request is that the leadership investigates what happened, why the process was bypassed, and how we prevent this from happening in the future. Furthermore, this raises fiscal questions. We are told we can suddenly fund this new program, yet simultaneously we are searching for ways to cut costs and fund our warm, safe, dry initiatives. We must be mindful of the contradictory message this sends to our community. So I just, again, just keep that in the back of our minds. And then on the lighter note, I just welcome all the students, the BPS employees, and I hope we have a nice, healthy, safe school year.
That's it. All right, I'm next. All right, so I want to officially thank Claire and Arno. It's great to see you there with your name templates there. And I do appreciate that you're already making a contribution, and I'll admit it, I didn't really know what those glasses do, so now I understand a lot better what they're capable of doing, so Thank you for that. And then our new board members on to my left. Everybody survived their first meeting together, so that's great. Again, I said it earlier in the meeting, but I want to thank everybody for all their hard work, getting us ready for the start of school with so many projects going on. You know, to get to that first day and to have it run pretty seamlessly is a minor miracle, and I know that doesn't happen without a lot of planning and sweat and teamwork, so thank you. And then I'll just close with, I attended 2 events since our last meeting. When I was at the kickoff event, Miss Sarah Barrett was our master of ceremonies, and she did a magnificent job. There is a video somewhere of Mr. Kim rapping. I'm not sure if he's destroyed all those copies, but I'm not sure if that's been released yet, but somehow she talked him into that. But I've been to those events. I got a chance to introduce Claire and Arno to the entire organization. The sense of working towards a goal was palpable. We got off to a great start. I know we're going to keep working to the goal of serving students, and it's really exciting. And then the last thing I'll say is I went to the Corn Boil, and that's a different type of event. And you know, I volunteered in the past. This year I did not. Usually I walk around and I make a corny joke as people are eating and say, "Are you enjoying your corn? Do you realize that's hand shucked?" And people kind of look at me, and that's a Bill Murray joke. But that corn boil works because we have all of these volunteers that support the district. If the district was working in isolation, there's only so much we could accomplish. But we have this incredible army of community members that step up. And, you know, I say the reason why our students are able to succeed is, yes, the district is great, but also they have the palpable support of the entire community, allowing them to do basically whatever they can imagine. So I'm going to get ahead of it and say, as we move through the year, thank you to everybody that's going to volunteer their time, talent, or treasure to support the district, our teachers, our staff, and our students, because without their help, none of this would be possible.
All right, I'll go next. So I was able to attend HG Storm's opening day on Thursday, and it was great. Mr. Milka had everything organized, and there were people from Brad was there, and John was there, and there were all kinds of people, and staff were stationed all around the building, and it went seamlessly. Brad and I were navigating traffic, and it was great. The only people crying were the kindergarten parents, trying to get them into the gym. But it was great. It was awesome. Kudos to everyone at HG Storm. And I just wanted to say happy school year to everybody, students, teachers, staff, and go Bulldogs.
Okay. I'll just say welcome back to school for everybody. Hopefully you had a great summer and are ready to get back to learning. I also am a parent at HG Storm, so I was there day 1 and 2, and amidst all what looked like chaos from afar, was very well organized, and appreciate Mr. Milka in his construction vest so we could point him out for everyone to see. It was a good laugh. My children love when he dresses up. So, you know, I threatened to wear one as well day 2, but was turned down by my daughter. And yeah, welcome back everyone, and looking forward to a great year.
For the record, were you one of the parents that were crying that they had to console? No.
Maybe the opposite.
Maybe. Yeah, a couple of things. One, for me, is kind of administrative a bit. So I met earlier in the week with the board president at the Batavia Park District and with Allison, the director of the Batavia Park District. There's a potential collaborative intergovernmental agreement type opportunity where they are working with Mooseheart, kind of a part of a long-standing, and Tara probably knows as much or more than anybody else here about it, kind of a long-standing agreement that there's a kind of a collaborative donation effectively of some land kind of near the fire station down the street that allows for some expansion of Park District facilities. And part of that, as I understand, requirement is that the city and the school district and the Park District must, even though it will be managed or provided to the Park District, has to be a collaborative use amongst the different governmental units. So there's been a long-standing look at this. Tony's participated in them, as has Mark in his previous role, to look at like what fields we might want, what facilities might be advantageous. There has been kind of talk of a fitness center or potentially aquatic center. I mean, a number of opportunities have floated around, and what kind of things that we might be open to kind of collaborating, whether that's, and what level of support we could give. So we'll be having future discussions potentially about that. What they have asked us to do, and what we've kind of talked about, is kind of having a couple of board members meet at a time with them. So like myself and maybe somebody else that would go meet with them to understand a bit more about it, kind of treat it like one of our advisory committees a bit, and then to bring information back here, and then we can talk about as a group what level of policies we may or may not have about endorsing, supporting, otherwise communicating. At a minimum, we would need to express that this is a collaborative process and that we would find benefit for them to do what they're doing there effectively, right? That's kind of one of the requirements of Mooseheart as a part of that agreement that they have. So the city is working with them independent. It has nothing to do with us. There's talk about, another facility that's there and a big, kind of fairly significant portion of land that they are working out. We're not in the discussion point with that. So it's for effectively however the park district can work with us to support our students, long and short. So, does anybody have any issues with that concept of us kind of meeting at first just with two, kind of do a workshop with a couple of their board members and us? And so if anybody's interested in it, please feel free to email me, and then we can kind of come back and I can kind of informally pull the board about, blah, 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 volunteer. Does anybody have any objections, that sort of thing about it? So, okay. And then my only comments is, I will say, I'm not going to necessarily reiterate about thank you to everybody for their events and the efforts that they put in the past couple of days. I literally am going to a school tomorrow where they are picking up roof materials off of a playground, and it better be done by 6:30 in the morning. So I'm going to go watch them do it to make sure it gets done. It was an emergency thing. One of the storms a couple of weeks ago blew a roof off. So we had to hustle to get it back on in time. So I feel everybody's anxiety as the weeks and days and hours approach as things occur. And I send a nightly email to the administration at that school to make sure they know where everything is at any point in time. So to everybody that takes the time and care and effort to make sure our students are safe, I very much appreciate all of that. And the fact that now, for the most part, the teachers, as well as they are capable and they are focused on teaching and focusing on paying attention to what's best for the kids. So that is my comments. Today we're going into closed session. We will not have any action items after the closed session. You are welcome to stay here if you like, but if you decide to leave, we want to thank you for coming out this evening. The time is 9:27 p.m. and I will entertain a motion to move to closed session as allowed under the Open Meetings Act for the purpose of Exception 5 ILCS 120/C1. So moved by Raquel. Second by Rob. Cindy, please lead us in a roll call vote.
Ryan,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Arlandu,
Yes.
Garrels,
Yes.
Gonzalez Thomas.
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everybody else. Please go home.